Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which, as you can see, is an introduction to Dynamics 365 Business Central for the non-profit sector. So we're obviously thrilled to host you all today, in which should be quite an insightful look, I think, into quite a powerful financial management tool, which is Business Central. Over the next hour, we're going to cover some key features and benefits of Business Central and demonstrate really how it can be applied in the non-profit context and explore how it can help you focus more on what really matters to you, which is making a difference in your communities that you serve. So before we get started, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend, and just a special thanks also to Microsoft's TSI team for co-hosting this session. So we definitely encourage questions. We don't bite. We encourage your questions. So there is a Q&A area for you to place those in. What we will do is run the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. I'd like to welcome some of our other speakers today, and we're going to start with Peter Taylor.
Hey everyone, I'm Pete. I lead the Business Central practice here at Formus Pro. Been with the business a couple of years, and before that spent many years in the Dynamics space. Started out life working with Dynamics GP back in the late 90s, and then found Navision, or NAV, which is the old name for Business Central, in the early 2000s, and I've been working with NAV and Business Central for many years, from the early 2000s up until present day. So thanks, Andrew.
I'm Phil Cameen. I'm a technical architect here at Formus Pro. I've been in the Dynamics space for about 15 years or so, and have been, sort of an AI enthusiast even longer than that, going back to the dawn of time, doing neural networks and the like in the mid to late 90s. So I'm looking forward to showing you some of the bits and pieces that Copilot has to offer.
So I'm Andrew. I'm a member of the commercial team at Formus Pro. I have also been with the firm, but just over a year now, and to really what I'm looking at doing is to really help your organisations unlock the potential of Dynamics 365 Business Central as a financial management tool, and really help you guys leverage the support that Microsoft really tailor for the NFP sector. So my role very much involves identifying key areas where we can find efficiencies, but all of this actually is a sideshow from what is the most important part, and that is connecting you with our technical teams and bringing their extensive expertise to bear, or the brains of the outfit, as I potentially might put it.
My name is Chris Lyons. I work in our Microsoft Tech for Social Impact team, or TSI, because we need a 3-letter acronym. My role is one of the best at Microsoft, I always say. That's because I get to work with amazing charities every single day, via amazing partners such as Formus. We have an unbelievable partner ecosystem here at Microsoft that there's 450,000 partners globally. But actually, when we look at the non-profit sector, there's only a real handful that do this on purpose. And Formus absolutely are one of them partners. The reason that you're here today is because they really understand this market, they understand the non-profit sector, they understand your challenges, and they really want to make a difference in this world. So at Microsoft, we believe that technology is a really powerful force to change the planet. We must make this technology affordable, we must make it really relevant, and we must make it accessible for you as charities. And we really do believe that the success of this sector, the non-profit sector, is critical to how we achieve this, which is our overarching Microsoft mission. We are a customer-first, partner-led company, so we start with the needs of our customers, but work with our partners at Formus to really deliver the best outcomes for each organisation. So what is Tech for Social Impact? We realised we need to think a bit different about how we did business in this sector. So back in 2017, we brought our philanthropies business together with big Microsoft, and we created Tech for Social Impact. And it's a brand new business model within Microsoft. So now we have around 220 people that work in this team that are solely dedicated to the non-profit sector. That's all we work in. We don't deal with education one day and manufacturing the next. We purely deal with you as non-profit organisations. So I talked before, we need to make our technology affordable. We offer between a 60 and 80% discount off most of the SKUs that are out there from a commercial point of view. We need to build capacity within you as organisations. especially when we talk about things like Business Central and business applications. Most of us on this call have probably been through a system implementation in the past that they haven't received the right training for or education. And guess what happens? We don't use it. So capacity building is absolutely critical to how we achieve our mission. Our partner ecosystem, I've already touched on. It's a huge, huge ecosystem, but we really do pick out them golden nuggets such as Formus to come and help you because we know they get you and they really get you as an organization. But my favorite thing about working in this team, and this is why I'm so passionate and I get out of bed every day, is every single dollar we make, we reinvest into this sector. So we have a social investment model that every single dollar above and beyond our costs goes back into the non-profit sector. So what does that look like in terms of numbers? And these are some pretty staggering numbers. Last year, we gave $4.7 billion back into the non-profit sector in grants and software and services. Now, just to put that into perspective, because there is probably some finance people on this call, that is a lot of zeros. But put it in perspective into real world terms, if we were a country, so we're an aid-giving country like UK or France or the US, we'd be number 11 in the world. That's how much money we're putting back into this sector. So it's really, really critical that the more we do, the more we reach every single customer we reach, the more money we're actually generating for this amazing sector. And I'll just skip down to the bottom number there, 377,000 organizations. Now, that sounds a lot. If I actually shrink that down to the UK, that's about 32,000 organizations in the UK that are getting the most out of our discounts. So they're actually signed up with Microsoft and are eligible. 32,000. There's 170,000 in the UK. So there's a massive, massive opportunity for you to go and tell your friends, peers, pets, whatever it may be, to go and get signed up with Microsoft Tech for Social Impact, go and save some money and make sure you're getting the most out of your discounts. But just to sum this slide up, supporting non-profits is part of our DNA. We've been doing it for 40 years. Our giving campaign, which actually ends on Friday this year, raised $250 million last year alone. And that's because we're a huge organization. We have 255,000 employees as we sit here today. And so I actually think that number could be a little bit higher. And that's my ambition to try and drive that. So this is a bit of an eyesore of a slide. I know these slides will be shared, but these are just some of our hero offers that we provide to the sector. And really, this is just talking about how we have offers in every single area of our workloads. So if we start on the left-hand side with productivity and creativity, we call that modern work. I mentioned the business premium licenses. So 90% of the UK's charities are actually under 20 seats. We really want to help them. So by providing 10 free licenses of business premium, we can help that long tail, and we can take the profits that we make from maybe the larger charities and put it into the smaller SMB charities. So that's really, really important that you go and get that. And if we move to the middle column and we look at data and security and infrastructure, we actually offer $2,000 every single year as a credit to use on Azure, our infrastructure cloud program. And also things like Power BI Desktop and Power BI Pro. We offer free Power BI Desktop and super reduced discount on Power BI Pro. And then right onto business applications. This is where the Formus guys come in. So any licensing questions go to them, not me. They're the experts, not me. Business applications is where we offer Power Apps, which we're going to touch on a little bit today, I believe, and Sales Enterprise and Copilot business applications, which I think Phil's going to show. Really, really exciting suite of products we've got. Please go and ask your partner, Formus, am I getting the most out of my Microsoft licensing as a non-profit? And then finally, it's taken me 9 minutes to mention AI, but our mission has changed. We really do think we're in this inflection point in time that AI has come to work. 80% of organizations are saying we are going to be implementing AI in the next 12 months. Only 60% are saying we've got a plan to how to do it. I'm really excited. I'm super excited about this inflection point we are in time, this new era of AI. Some people are calling it the fourth industrial revolution. But our ambition now at TSI is to bring the power of AI to every single social impact organization everywhere, whether that be in the global south, whether that be right here up in Manchester, where it's nice and rainy. As always, It matters. The mission matters for you. Remember, nobody ever goes and donates money to your charity and says, I really want this to go on business premium licenses. They want it to go help the dolphins, cure cancer, or help children. With that, Andrew, I'll hand back over.
Great, thanks very much indeed, Chris. It's a really insightful look into how Microsoft's really supporting really important sector. We all know, we're all here because we work in the sector, and we all know it's exceptionally important. And it's great to see a big company like Microsoft putting so much support and money back into it. So thanks, Chris. It's really good to see. So as you said, Chris, a lot of the activity is customer focused and then partner led. So customer first and then delivered through partners. I guess it would be remiss of me not to talk about Foremost Pro as a partner in where they come into it. So if I just start with a little bit of background about Foremost Pro, we first started in 2012, and the company was started by Glenn Powell, who is still today's CEO. And he had a clear mission, and that was really to empower non-profit sector and the organizations through innovation of technology solutions. Our first client was Anthony Nolan, the blood cancer charity, and they still are our longest standing client today, and we're thrilled to be working with them still. And we focus really on supporting unique needs of the non-profit sector and really helping you guys maximize your impact. There's no point in sitting there trying to spend all of your day on systems and inefficiencies when you should be out doing some really, really important things in your areas. So that's what we're here to do, really. So our team has grown actually quite significantly over the last few years. So we were about 18 members of staff in early 2020, and now I'm thrilled to say we're over 70 dedicated professionals. We specialize really in providing the tailored solutions for Microsoft Dynamics 365. And there's a stack of those programs. So customer engagement is one of them, CRM and marketing, Business Central, which we're talking about today, and the Power Platform, which Phil will talk on later. All of our developers, let's say we'll call them developer sort of consultants, they're a hybrid, and we've sort of coined that phrase really because they act as a sort of a critical friend when we're talking to you guys and looking at projects and things. So they're going to gather information and then gather those requirements, understand where your processes can be improved, suggest ways to achieve your goals, because clearly charities have huge goals and sort of desires in mind to really make things better, and then also offer process changes where it's applicable and where you're going to gain those efficiencies. Then they act as the functional consultants to actually configure and develop and deliver the solution to you. So there's none of the sort of like the miscommunication, Chinese whispers between a consultant that goes, yes, we can do all of that, and then hand over to the technical team, and you then find that there's a mismatch into what was being said. So that's why we sort of we pride ourselves in having those hybrid consultants. We have various locations around the UK and overseas. So we've got Hereford and Kidderminster as a couple of locations. We've also have Florida and Chicago as our US business. They're all backed by our UK-based, very experienced support team, and we're all ultimately committed to offering exceptional service to yourselves. As we continue to expand, really our goal is to be clear and strengthen the presence in the UK and the US, and really help you guys in the non-profit sector achieve your missions with technology. If we just look at the agenda for today, over the next, I guess, 35 minutes, we're going to cover various things. We're going to look at what is Dynamics 365 Business Central. We've been saying those words quite a lot on the call, but we'll show you what that is. We're obviously going to show how Business Central can really sort of help you guys in your sector. Phil's going to touch on where the AI fits into that, and there's going to be a sort of a sprinkling of AI during the demo of Business Central, and at the end we're going to finish up with a Q&A session. So Business Central is Microsoft's cloud-based ERP or financial management system. It's accessed really by your web browser, and it's designed specifically for the small to medium-sized organizations. It was released in 2018. And it's really the modern successor for what is Dynamics Navision, and it is a cloud-based system that you can access from anywhere with a web connection. So Business Central really has grown in its, I guess, its sort of usage over that time. So we're now in 180 countries, or Microsoft are, with Business Central, and over 40,000 organizations that globally use Business Central as their financial management tool. There is an accolade to call out here. I think that it was named Best Cloud ERP Software by Forbes Advisor this year. I think one of the standout features of Business Central really is the flexibility of the system. It's highly configurable because it can really fit the unique needs of all of the charities. You can extend it; it's scalable to grow with you as your charity grows, and it can also integrate seamlessly with most of everyone's existing workflows, from donors and donations and volunteering and tracking those sorts of things. So at its core, it's a fantastic financial management system. But what it also is it's supported by a vast marketplace of additional software that's ultimately available through the apps or extensions marketplace. And these can really deliver some enhanced efficiencies. And to the user, it is a great tool because it can basically sit inside your Business Central environment, and you don't have to go off-site or off-program to do something else, which is great. It's integrated also with a lot of the other products that Microsoft Office, Outlook, Teams, really making the collaboration and the data sharing that much more efficient. And with that being a cloud-based system, some might ask, how is that kept up to date? And thankfully, there's a good answer for that, and that's a twice yearly update with any new features and functions that has been released into the system. And really, that you get a lot of foresight in that, and we as a partner really help our clients to understand what those new features are and really try and leverage those, because obviously you're paying for a license to access it. You may as well get the absolute most from it. So hopefully that gives a bit of an overview really of Business Central and what it is at its heart. I think probably best now at this stage, I think, Peter, is probably to actually to look at how that's going to help the NFP sector, and then really get into the what does it look like.
Sure, thanks, Andrew. But how can it help not-for-profit specifically? So it's a kind of fully featured system that helps with key accounting issues such as fund or income control. We'll look at in a second, we'll look at a demonstration of how that can be managed in Business Central. You would expect it to have tight expenditure controls, so the whole purchase to pay cycle, it can manage that. Other key topics for not-for-profits we found in our client base is the ability for project accounting, so being able to track income and expenditure at project level and all the reports that come with that. Multi-company and consolidation. So most of our not-for-profit clients have a multi-company structure. So Business Central can help with that. And then we'll touch on how Business Central is integrated with other Office products. I'll show you some tangible examples of where that comes in. And overlying all that really is a really comprehensive set of reporting options and budgeting options. Reporting is obviously a crucial issue for not-for-profits and charities, so we'll cover some of that. And then a couple of kind of standalone topics, really. We'll look at sustainability and where Microsoft is going with that particular topic. And then the all-important Copilot. So Copilot in Business Central, that's the AI assistant within Business Central, and also within other applications such as Outlook and Excel. So we'll look at those things. I think we've had enough PowerPoint now. We're going to get into some software. Okay, so here's Business Central. It's a cloud-based system. I've just logged into my Chrome browser here, or Edge actually, and it can be run on any device. And that's the beauty of it. There's, gone are the days of installing software and having a server and all those things. It's hosted by Microsoft. This is the online version. There is an on-premise version available. Most of our clients go for the online version because of the obvious benefits: no hardware, no maintenance, and so on. And as Andrew mentioned, we get 2 major updates every year, and we get minor updates once a month. So the app the system is continually evolving at pace, and Microsoft are introducing features and functionality at a rapid pace as the minor and major updates go through. So let's take a look at what I would call the backbone of the Business Central system, and that is the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts itself is just a list of codes. We can set this up in however we want to do. We've got an income section, an expenditure section. This can be configured however you want. The account code can be, 20 digits alphanumeric. This is just a sample that I've got in my demo system today. So you can see, obviously, we've got some figures on the screen here. If I drill into a number, we've got a list of transactions. And the important point really about this section is this ability to tag transactions with dimensions. And in this case, we've got 3 dimensions here showing called fund, donor type, and cost center. So I've set up the system so that we can't post transactions to the GL code without tagging the fund code. And that gives us the ability to report in the system, not just at general ledger code level, but also at dimension code level. So I can do things like I can filter my chart of accounts by fund. So I've got some restricted funds and unrestricted funds. So these are kind of crucial to the not-for-profit sector. And selecting a fund will dynamically change the figures that we see up here. So I can take that one step further and view my data in the system by dimension. So here I've got a matrix, and it's giving me my GL codes down the left and my fund codes as columns. And again, so this type of outputs and reporting information is really key to our not-for-profit clients. We can spin the analysis here and we say, well, I want to see my donor type as rows and my funds as columns, and then I can show a matrix here. So very quickly and easily, we arrive at some really intelligent reporting based on those key things, which are called dimensions. Okay, so let's now talk a little bit about how we can process income in the system. We've got, options to do journals. We've got recurring journals. So let's say there was a corporate company that was donating regularly. We can have a recurring journal. We can also put deferral templates into journals. So if I go into here and I just give you a very simple journal line here. So let's say I'm going to post some income to my public fundraising account. Let's say 100K. I can go in here and I have to specify my fund code, and in this case, my donor type. But I can also attach this deferral code here. And this we're seeing is increasingly a very important thing for our not-for-profits, being able to defer revenue forward over future periods. So if I go and post this journal, then what happens is, if we go back to our chart of accounts, the balance has been updated, but you can see the forward postings here into that particular GL code. So being able to manage deferred revenue and deferred costs is a crucial element of accounting for our not-for-profit and charity clients. Alternatively, we can post sales invoices. So let's say a corporate was making a donation. They often want to have an invoice. And of course, we've got sales invoices as standard in the system. But we've also got something called recurring invoices. So let's just go into here and have a look at one of these. So this template here is a recurring invoice template for a corporate donation. So my customer, who is in this case Formus Pro, want to be invoiced for £500 every month. And I can set up my schedule here to say it's a monthly donation invoiced on the first day of each month. So going back to my template here, I can see the last invoice and the next invoice. And that template essentially stays there until I make invoices. And it's not going to create one now because I'm not on the 1st of January, but that would just tick over and create the next invoice for me. So again, that's a feature of the system that we're starting to see used more and more to manage that recurring invoice-based revenue. To collect that money, we've got a direct debit system built in to Business Central. So we often see people work with companies or other software vendors like Go Cardless and other softwares. But now we've got direct debit functionality built into the system. So I'd go and create a new direct debit collection, put my dates in, it would give me some entries. And once I've got my entries, which can be shown here, I can then export a file and it would then be processed through the bank, and I could then finish off the process by posting those payment receipts. So the whole kind of recurring revenue and collection of money by direct debit is all handled within the system. Okay, so that covers really the income and fund accounting side. Let's talk now a little bit about the expenditure accounting side. So up here in my shortcuts, I've got an option called purchase quotes. And I really describe these as requisitions. Now, the beauty of this particular area is that the purchase quote system can be used by users which have a team member license. And a team member license is essentially a read-only license with limited write access. But importantly, it comes at a fraction of the cost of a full license. And we can talk about license costs later. But to give you an idea, it's around about 10% of the cost for a team member license compared to the essentials license. So really cost-effective way of people putting data into the system. So let's go ahead and create a new quote. I'll go in and very quickly just create a new create a quote for a GL code. Let's go in here and say I'm going to spend some money on storage space. Okay, so let's go in here, say it's 500. I've got options for approvals here. So the system's got workflow built in, but it's also got the ability to go out and reach out to Power Automate. So this is a kind of real world example of Microsoft Office 365 functionality, in this case, Power Automate, being embedded inside Business Central. So you can see here, I can create an approval request for a quote based on the first response or all responses or whatever. So we've got both a kind of standard workflow engine and the ability to connect to Power Automate to leverage the power inside that system. Let's go ahead and convert this quote to an order. And here I now have my purchase quote converted to a purchase order. So where that becomes significant now, if I bring that back to my chart of accounts, so coming down here, this is the code that I use, 20170. The fields, the columns that you see in the middle of the page from commitments onwards, we've actually created these fields as custom fields in order to demonstrate how easy it is to customize the system, to add fields and add columns that aren't there. So our not-for-profit and charity clients asked us to basically have a commitments column in here, and that's just the sum of purchase orders. So our forecast column is now the net change plus the commitments, and that gives us our forecast column. I've then got a budget, and I can see my variance columns on the end. So these 5 columns here, we've actually added in as minor customizations. And that will come with any system that any not-for-profit or charity client wanted to have in their Business Central system. Of course, I can drill into that commitments figure and then further drill down to see what the actual purchase order was. So yeah, that's seemingly a very important development for our not-for-profit clients. So let's talk now about invoice matching. Let's go. I'm just going to switch my setting here. So this is a list of options I have in terms of my profile or role center. So I'm just going to switch into here. And we'll talk about, no, this wasn't meant to happen. We'll talk about how we invoice match or process purchase invoices in the system using OCR technology. I'm not sure that works. Let me go back here. Yes, it did. So I've got a document here sitting in this ready to register tile. So what happens is your suppliers continue to email your accounts payable email address, and the system is listening for emails with PDF attachments. And essentially this tile will fill up with purchase invoices. So what the system does automatically, it detects the fields inside the PDF, and it will populate the invoice field in Business Central based on its best guess. So if the system gets it wrong, we can go on the PDF and draw around fields. So essentially you're training the system. So let me go down here. So the system has found all the fields that it needs. There aren't any exceptions, and I can go and register that document. And what this will do now is it will give me a purchase invoice with the PDF attached. So it breaks the back of processing the transaction, and you can then send it for approval or post it into your vendor ledger. So very much a time-saving tool that helps your accounts payable function in their daily processing. So continuing on the theme of OCR, we've got this. This is actually a third-party tool. So it's a product that's been written or developed by one of our ISV or partners. They're called Continia, and there are lots of these add-on solutions out there in the extension marketplace. There are literally thousands of them, and we're finding that our not-for-profit clients tend to implement the OCR invoice matching functionality, and sometimes this expense functionality as well. So just to give you an idea of how that works, let's go in here, and I'm just going to drag in a receipt into the box here. So the system is reading the receipt, it's populating the amount, and then the user just has to go in and specify all the fields that I've deemed mandatory. So here I've got my fund again, I've got my donor type and so on. My expense type is, what is it? It's food. I can specify the project, which we'll come on to, and specifies an expense. So here I can put in my receipt title, and then I just submit it. So that's available in portal format, or you can have a mobile phone app to manage that process for you. Okay, so let's get back into Business Central. And I'm just going to switch my setting back to the accounting role. Okay. So let's talk now a little bit about the project accounting side of Business Central. So up here in my shortcuts, I've got a projects option. One of the fields that we had to enter in the expense screen was the project. So here I've got a single project. It's for a fundraising exercise, and you can see we've got various fields in here. We've got which customer it relates to. Could be internal, it could be an actual customer. Fields like the project manager, lots of different project-specific fields. In the middle section here, we've got tasks, project tasks. So this is really, you can configure this how you want to break down the lines or phases or tasks inside your project. I've got two lines here, one for income, one for expenses. And the idea is that when we're tagging transactions with this project code, a cost and income position is building up all the time. And on the right-hand side over here, it's giving us a view of profitability. So the deployment of the projects module is very much optional, but it kind of ticks a big box in terms of what our not-for-profit and charity clients are asking us for. We've also got a kind of WIP, calculate WIP, work in progress system. So this will manage the deferment of costs and revenues if that's something that you need in your accounting regime. Okay, So moving on, we'll talk a little bit now about the multi-company consolidation aspect of Business Central. So it's very common for, well, probably I'd say 90% of our NFP clients have more than one legal entity or company or not-for-profit entity inside their organization. So Business Central allows for multi-company. I think there are 300 companies you can set up in the Business Central online version. And here I've got three companies, my NFP, my charity, and my console company. So let's go and have a look at the console company and just talk a little bit about how the consolidation actually works. So we've got these things here called business units. And inside my console company, I've got one for my charity company and one for my NFP company. So we can tell the system what dates we want to consolidate, what percentage of the numbers we want to consolidate into the parent. Well, let's go and do that now. I'll consolidate 100% for October, and I'll finish that consolidation. And what's going to happen now is essentially the console company is receiving a journal from the two business units. And we'll see that here now when we go and look at the chart of accounts inside the console company. You can see here, I drill into the number. We're not getting the detailed transactions because they're in the other companies. What we are getting is a number from the NFP and the charity business unit. So some really kind of neat and easy to use functionality with regards to consolidation. As you would expect, we've got a suite of reports to complement the consolidation piece. So let's do a report. This is called the consolidated trial balance. And it will just give you an idea of the kind of output that you can expect from Business Central. So I've got a number for my console and then broken down per business unit. And we'll come on to touch on reports in a lot more detail in a few minutes. Okay, so let me switch back to my main company. And we'll now touch on how Business Central is integrated with other Office 365 products. So to do that, I'm going to run a page here called Vendor Ledger Entries. And this is essentially a list of all my vendors' transactions in the system. I've got invoices, payments, expenses, and so on. So up here, I've got options to share to Teams, open the data in Excel. The thing I wanted to mention is this edit in Excel. So what this allows you to do is push data from a list of data in Business Central out to Excel. And in a moment, it shall open. And I'll just go and make sure my connection is there. Okay, it's here. So here I've got a list of data. So what it's allowing me to do, as long as the field is editable, in this case, the due date is editable, I can change the data in the spreadsheet and publish it back to Business Central. So if I now go back to BC, I can see, I go over here, my data just changed there, okay? So the use cases for that is, we can update lists of master data, we can put journals from Excel into BC. And again, that interaction with Excel is something that accountants and financial people tend to love. And it's just there out of the box because Microsoft are investing a lot of money in the integration with Office 365. We saw how we can share data to Teams. Another really good example of how that the Teams integration with Business Central is being able to surface Business Central data directly within Teams. So here I've got my team. Let me just go and do that and add a Business Central widget. So here it's saying, well, what environment do you want to pull data from, and which company, and which page do you want to show? So let's say vendor ledger entries, and I want to show open transactions. So I'll complete that, and in a second, I'm just getting some authentication on my other screen. It will display the data inside Teams, and you can actually interact with it. So, for example, on this invoice here, I can click Show My Document, and it will show the transaction with the attachments and so on directly within Teams. And the really cool piece about it is that you don't need to have any Business Central license at all. That just works with a Microsoft 365 license. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a flavor of some of the integration we have within Business Central linked to other Microsoft Office 365 products. Okay, let's talk now about reporting. So one of the key strengths of Business Central is the range of different reporting options we've got available. So the first, if anyone ever asked me for a question about how I get some data, how I can get some a report from Business Central, I often point them to a page. So I describe this as pages and reports. So can I get a trial balance? Well, yes, here it is directly on the screen, showing you the net change. If I do some clever filtering on here by date, and do some filtering down on here by my different dimensions and so on, you can often get a report as a page on the screen. Now, of course, what we do have beyond those pages as reports is a list of what I would call paper reports. So you can go into the Report Explorer here and view, let's go into the Explorer option on the Finance menu. And here, for example, we've got trial balance reports. So let's have a look at, a trial balance compared to the previous year. Okay, it's going to ask me for a date range. Here we go. So that's a fairly kind of typical output that you would expect from Business Central or any accounting system. But the really cool thing about these is you can send them to a schedule. So if I do this, it will create a schedule for me, and that report will just land in the report inbox. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of people, a lot of our clients across the board really using this feature to land reports in the inbox. We've also got options for financial reports. So these are your more kind of structured, formal reports. So your statement of financial activities and statement of financial position. So your balance sheet that not-for-profits and charities tend to need. And if I view that, it's kind of a classic layout where we've got our accounts coming down the left, and we've got our column definition coming across to the right here. If we want to, we can edit the column definitions and row definitions. So it's a really highly configurable reporting tool that we work with you to configure your reports during any implementation. We've got the ability to have cash flow forecasts. So let's go in here, and on the right hand side here, these numbers are updated based on the various sources of cash flow. So in my cash flow worksheet, I can suggest the lines. The system's now saying, well, what do you want to consider in the cash flow? Receivables, that's money's due in. Payables, money's due out. Fixed assets, disposals, and all these different types of cash flow source. So let's go and do that and register the lines. And if I go back here, we can now view a nice report here that says by week, by day, by month, my opening cash position is, the figure here, and then all the receivables added in, all the payables taken out, etc., give me a projected cash position at the end of that week. So some really kind of nice real-time cash flow reporting built in there. Coming back to the home page, we've got options for Excel reports. So Microsoft are planning a load of investment into providing additional Excel reports. So if I went to run one, for example, trial balance from the previous year, and download this into Excel, the idea is that we can store this Excel report in our SharePoint. And once it's generated, we don't have to go into Business Central. We can just refresh the data directly within the Excel report. So this is just getting the data now from Business Central. Microsoft have chosen the kind of pivot table method of giving us this data. The beauty of that is I can, of course, add more columns. I can use slices over here and so on. So I'd save that away and just refresh it the next time I needed it. And as I say, Microsoft are putting a lot of investment into producing more and more Excel reports. They're also putting a lot of investment into the connection or integration with Power BI. So down here in my role center, I've got a Power BI section. So let's go and expand this report. This is an example actually of a third-party add-on called Business Central Insights. But I've chosen this because it gives you a really good overview of the types of output you can achieve within Power BI directly within Business Central. So, you know, you've got a lot of reporting options down the bottom here. But, you know, if I go back to the Power BI section here, we can choose any report that's made available to your business through Power BI. So I've got a load of options here. And in the next minor release of Business Central, which is due November, then Microsoft are introducing about 76 new Power BI reports into Business Central. So yeah, hopefully that little section there gives you an insight into the lots of different types of reporting options you've got within the application. Okay, moving on, just something to touch on quickly. I mentioned earlier on that Microsoft have fairly recently added this topic of sustainability into the system. So this is the chart of sustainability accounts. If you'd asked me a year ago or 2 years ago, are Microsoft doing anything about the ESG requirements that companies, that charities and not-for-profits are asking us about, I would have said no. But here we go. We've got some, you know, relatively new functionality that allows us to track things like vehicle emissions and machine emissions. So that's a really kind of welcome introduction of functionality recently from Microsoft. We can view, you know, emission reports, for example. So let's go here. This is also an Excel-based report. Let me get content here. So as things develop, you know, this is very new and embryonic in terms of the sustainability features inside BC, but it shows that Microsoft are moving in a useful direction in terms of ticking that ESG functionality box. Okay, so just to round off then, I appreciate I've been talking for a while. I wanted to cover some of the AI Copilot features inside Business Central. So Copilot in Business Central is essentially your AI assistant. It's used to help automate certain processes in the system. It's a fairly new kind of feature set within Business Central. You can see here I've got a number of features, and the things I'm going to show today are the how to analyze lists of data using Copilot and the bank reconciliation feature. Now, going forwards in 6 months, I expect that list to be, you know, filled out with more options as Copilot and AI becomes more embedded inside the application. So let's go and look at the analysis mode. So here is a list of general ledger entries, quite a basic list of data. And, you know, I could export that to Excel, pivot it, do what I wanted, do things in Excel to that data. But what about if I wanted to analyze the data directly in Business Central? So let's go and delete that one. And so now I can ask Copilot to create me a new analysis. So I'll say subtotal by donor type and fund. Okay, we'll see what it does with that spelling mistake there as well. So it's gone away and it's given me a fund code subtotal and then my donor type within fund code. And of course I can go and add more fields into here as I see fit. When I'm happy with that, I can keep it. And that tab now just stays there ready for me to reuse going forwards. Now we use Business Central internally and our CEO absolutely loves this feature when he's looking at things like overdue invoices on the vendor ledger and also the sales ledger. So it's embryonic, it's early in its development, but you can see the direction of travel that Microsoft are taking. And it's a really useful feature, as I've said, in the real world for our business. Let's talk a little bit now about another feature. I can go and do a bank reconciliation. So what does that actually mean? How does Copilot know what to do? Let's try it. So I've got a single bank account set up here, and it's asking me to use data. So what does that mean? So it's asking me to import a bank statement. Worth mentioning here that there is an open banking solution that can go and get transactions from your bank without the need for a file import export, but that's for another webinar. Let's go out here and get our bank statement, and I can generate that. So it's created a bank reconciliation for me, but it's only matched some of the bank statement lines to my system transactions. So the one that it's not reconciled is here, 47K. And I've got two transactions on my right-hand side here. These are actually the system transactions, and they don't reconcile. So let's go back here, and this is suggesting here, Copilot is saying that a single entry is matched to two entries. I can keep that, and you can now see that it's actually reconciled one on the left to two on the right, and I would go ahead and post it. So that's quite a simple example, but we were already seeing some of our not-for-profit clients using that feature inside Business Central to help them save time with their bank reconciliation function. Okay, so just finally, I just wanted to cover a feature, a Copilot feature that actually sits inside Outlook. So this feature here is called Copilot for Finance. So what that does is it sits in Outlook and it gets data from Business Central. So let's go and open the Copilot in this email. So you can see down here, it can be used to suggest a reply, it summarizes the email, but it also sees that this email address is linked to a customer. So I can go in here and it's giving me my live aged breakdown in here. And it's also showing me my invoices. So this invoice is about 107.04. I can download that or I can update it. I can change the promise to pay. So they've said they'll pay it on the 5th. I can update the status and I can save that away. And that has now gone and updated the invoice in Business Central without having to go into the application itself. I can then, of course, suggest a reply. Thanks, payment dates noted, and I'll make a deliberate spelling mistake on there. And let's see what it does. So it will compose a draft and then it will write some information in there. Of course, you can embellish that with more data or text attachments and so on. You can send that back. So it's a really neat way of using or getting access to financial data in your Business Central system inside Outlook without going into Business Central itself. Okay, so that was a kind of whistle-stop tour of some of the features that I think would be useful, particularly for not-for-profit organizations and charities. And no doubt there'll be lots of questions on that later on, so I'll hand back to Andrew now and look forward to speaking to you later in the Q&A.
Thanks very much, Pete. And I think we've got the next instalment of AI with Phil. So Phil, over to you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Pete, and Andy. AI 101. So Pete's been showing us bits of Copilot. And before we dig into what Copilot is, I need to sort of talk a little bit about generative AI. So AI has been around for a long time now, sort of, dating back to the 50s. I was at Bletchley Park last night at an AI user group, and it's a fantastic place to go and visit, by the way, if you're ever near Milton Keynes or the like. And that's where a lot of people like Alan Turing started working on the concepts of AI. And over the years, there's been neural networks and knowledge-based systems and genetic algorithms and the like, and they've never quite sort of really become part of the mainstream. And so, with OpenAI kicking off, these large language models and the generative AI work from about 2017 onwards, that seems to have, it's really stirred stuff up. And what it's been able to do is bring together a lot of different types of AI, like OCR and such, and glue them together in such a way that you can now, coupled with automation, and I won't talk about agents yet. I'll say that for the AI Academy we're going to talk about later on. It starts to bring them together. So when I say LLM, it's a big neural network that's been trained on a lot of data, about 20 terabytes. It takes several weeks to train and uses a lot of power when it does so. But what you can do is when you start to throw, remodeled words into it, it can then take a good stab at the next best word. And so that's exactly what ChatGPT is doing, and to an extent what Copilot's doing. So you can read the slides yourselves, but if you ask it, I would want to do XYZ today, it'll have a guess and go, do you want to go to the park? Do you want to go to the beach? If you change the context of your question, I really do like to have a drink. What shall I do today? It might suggest that you go to the pub, because what it's doing is it's looking at the context and it's looking at this big mass of data that it's been trained on, and it's gluing together all the words that it's been trained on from the internet. So slightly scary and sometimes, and it's bringing those together and then saying, okay, this is the next most likely word to happen. So we'll see that when we dive in into the next slide in a second. We've got this additional thing called retrieval augmentation, and that's sometimes listed as RAG, and that's where we add a little bit of custom knowledge to the LLM. So the LLM is trained on a big stack of data, the various types under the hood. ChatGPT 3.5, I think, was trained up to 2021, and 4.0 is probably trained up to sort of 2023 data. So the LLM doesn't know about anything that you give it, outside of that. So sometimes you have to build up its knowledge before you start asking it questions. And there's a number of little tricks and stuff that are used. Chain of thought programming is one of those things. But what we're going to talk next about is retrieval augmentation and where it fits into Copilot. So I don't expect you to read this. What I'm keen for you to understand is over on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got the large language model. And in the middle there, we've got where the Copilot user prompt is happening. And we've got arrows going left, right, and center. But the key things to notice is that Copilot doesn't just talk to the LLM. What it's also doing is it's able to talk to plugins and to Bing search and to Dataverse when it's configured appropriately, and also to the Microsoft Graph. And the Microsoft Graph is everything that you do within your tenant. And the key item takeaway here is that along all of these routes, your data is not being used to train the LLM, and it's not being stored anywhere. And it's all sitting inside of Azure, so it's got a lot of security, keeping things tight, and meaning that your data doesn't get used where it shouldn't be used. And underneath a large language model, there's also RAI. You might just be able to bring it out, and that's we're talking about responsible AI. And that's a key push from Microsoft, that everything that they do with AI is not just purely as a means of doing stuff with AI, it's about making sure that, you know, there are ethics and things applied, and that the information you get out of the AI is not going to teach you, for example, how to make a bomb. And a lot of the time it means that things like, you may remember, Canada Airlines had a co-pilot of sorts, a chat bot, and it was doing something called having a hallucination, where because of, you know, had the way that an LLM works, it had been asked a question and it had gone off and it made up its own answer. And so the issue with, you know, sort of a lot of these AI systems out there, if they don't have this level of responsible AI and, you know, the responses being modified, then they can, you know, churn out absolute garbage. So it's an important part to recognize that wherever you're dealing with Microsoft Copilot, you're not just talking to an LLM. There's a lot of other things going on under the hood. Okay, so I think what I'll do is we'll jump into a couple of demos. So I'll share a screen. Start over here. We're going to start with Word, and I'm going to put in a prompt. If you want to know a little bit more about prompting generally, we're running, Performance Pro are running an AI Academy in another week or so's time. So if you're interested, do sign up and we can talk a bit more about that. Let's draft something with Copilot. So I'm part of a charity. I wanted to put together a grant proposal, and I'm building up. This is that retrieval augmentation. So this is teaching the AI what I want to learn. So what it needs to learn in order to give me a decent output. So let's start generating. So it's going to put together, it lays out the document nicely for me. It gives me objectives. It talks about the audiences and stuff. And as I go through, I think to myself, this is great. It's given me a conclusion. It's started to talk about things, but it's not quite right. What I need to do is I want to talk about a budget. So let's add a budget of 5,000 GBP. And now let's go again. So whenever you're doing any prompting, this is a big part of what you can do. You can build up your prompt and you can increase that knowledge that that Copilot has. And we're going to see other ways that we can add to this data by picking up documents from your tenant, for example. So great, that's gone through. And I'm hoping that somewhere in there it's, yeah, then we've got our 5,000 GBP. So that's a bit closer to what I want. And it may be that I choose to go and share that and push that out the door. So the next thing we're going to look at is Microsoft Teams. So here is my Microsoft Teams. I'm not going to leave it on the screen for a long time because there's a lot of stuff on it. But here's a meeting that I recorded, and what it's got is a button here called View Recap. And this recap is everything that the AI has taken from a meeting that I had with my colleagues. We're talking about various things, and it's pulled out the follow-up tasks. It's got the mentions. It's got a transcript. If I was to do this, if we'd recorded this with a video, it would have broken it into chapters for me, and it would have given me a breakdown of who was speaking when. A lot of information, and then I can query this and say, okay, what are my action items, for example? So I won't do that straight away. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this information, and seeing as we've worked together for an hour and a half putting all this information together, the AI has pulled it out. If I then want to share it in a slightly more exciting way, for example, or I want to go to a different audience, I may want to put that into a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to say, create a presentation, spell, based on no, I hasn't cut and paste the right value in there, but it'll be interesting to see what it does anyway. So the kind of thing that it's going to churn out is it doesn't just, create random slides. It works based on the data you give it. It comes up with opening slides. It comes up with conclusion slides. And I think sort of, there we go. Nerds need help, a grant proposal. It's some interesting images we've got coming up. These people are really not that nerdy, are they? So there you go. AI doesn't think nerds look like I do. There you go. So fascinating stuff. But you can see it's come up and it's giving you a PowerPoint presentation with all that appropriate information. And if we were to go and take that data from the meeting we had, we could also churn that as well into a number of slides. And you can see the power of this. You know, it goes from being, okay, I've got to come up with slides, I've got to make it look good and everything. 80% of the work is already done, and it's put all that data in there for you. Fantastic. It goes from it takes so much of that work away from you. We put that into PowerPoint, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate that your Copilot here has two sort of tabs, if you like, web and work. And what we have when we're on the website is that we have the whole power of the internet. But when we're on the work side of things, we can build stuff up even stronger. So this is now, if you recall back the document we did, the picture we showed of Copilot, we had Copilot and we had the MS graph. And now I can reference my MS graph. And so this is everything that I have access to across a number of SharePoint sites is now available to me. And we can get to that and reference this here. So what I can do is I can say, write a LinkedIn post about the latest work that Phil Cares does, and that's my charity. And now I can say, reference the file and made up budget for charity program. So all this information that you've already got across your tenant, we can reference and we can start to power the outputs of our AI. And this tips back onto what we were talking about earlier, the retrieval augmentation. So here we go, we've got stuff about budget and everything else that it's taken out of that document. It's done hashtags and things for me. And if I don't like the way this looks, I can say to it, please remove the hashtags, and it'll redevelop this for you and give you an alternative version. And this is the power of prompting, is that you can keep pushing and pushing. It's worth being nice to an AI when you're doing that, by the way, not so much because the AI cares, because bits of the information where it's been trained on, the nicer bits of the internet tend to use nice words. So there you go, also fascinating use. I'll do Excel next, and then so that's also a slightly fascinating look at the way this stuff works. So I've got a big spreadsheet here. It's actually information about a call center. Now, I know that's not directly related potentially to what you may be doing, but the point to take away here is that there are thousands of rows of data, and that the words used in here are not always complete English words. So, for example, the month September is written as SEP. It might be that it talks about abandoned calls and things like that. If I were to put in a prompt, so if we have a quick look at this prompt before I hit go. So what if the average percent of calls are abandoned? So like Pete illustrated earlier, spelling mistakes, not a huge issue generally with an AI. It manages to work stuff out before 60 seconds. And I put September 2015, and I've misspelled September as well. So it's not only that the word September doesn't exist in this file, it's also not even, it's not anywhere in the file anyway, though even the proper word September. So if we hit go, let it go away, it's going to give us an answer, and it does this analysis, and it's worked out that when I said abandoned, it means, I actually mean abandoned. So there we go. And it's worked out that month September and year 2015, and it's told me how it's done that as well. So that's another great feature, and I think in a lot of the Copilot stuff for Office 365, is that when you ask it to do something, and particularly in Excel, it'll give you some level of reasoning as well, which is very powerful. So when you're looking at what it's done, you can go, okay, no, I got that prompt wrong. Should my prompt be better? And that's something, again, we're going to talk about in the AI Academy, how you can actually just ask the AI, how was that prompt? how can I make it better? And last but not least is the AI for OneDrive. And this is one of my favorite things. So this is quite a recent release. So I've got a number of made up CVs, and we've got a CV by some guy called Phil Camino over here. And what I could do in Copilot, let's get rid of that part of the Copilot window, is I can compare these files. And it's going to go away and it's going to look at all these files and it's going to pick out the information and it's going to give me a summary. So these were CVs of made up Power Platform developers. Yep, it's done it as a nice table and it tells you all about their experience, how much English or French they use. I was having a conversation with my wife this morning. I said, when I did this, it told me that I didn't put any language skills in there, and I thought I'd put in conversational French. And she, of course, looked at me and said, your conversational French is not really conversational. So perhaps the AI knows a little bit more than it's actually letting on. So fantastic. So then if I want to say who's got the best French skills, I can ask the question. It's going to work on the request. And I can't remember, was it Mrs. Knight I'd configured? No, Michael Davis. There we go, Mr. Davis, this one here. So a huge amount of power there in terms of, what this can do for you in terms of drilling into data that you may or may not have, but also in terms of summarizing things and changing the formatting and changing that tone. So hopefully that gives you an insight into the kind of things you can do in Office 365. And I think most of those are fairly useful jobs. They're not, we're not generating pictures of bunny rabbits or anything like that here. We're actually doing useful business tasks.
Phil, thank you very much indeed for very insightful look at it, and really appreciate the details. Good to see things like that in action rather than actually just people saying, oh, we can do this without actually seeing it in the real world. So that's really good. Thank you. Conscious that we have perhaps extended a little longer than is comfortable for most. So I will keep the sort of closing brief. We'll go on to questions in a second. It was mentioned on the call earlier about certain costs, and obviously as Chris referenced, the support that they provide to the NFP sector. That comes in the form of the reduced cost for licensing for the users. So back to Business Central, I just wanted to touch on those very briefly. And if effectively, as Peter mentioned, there are two types of licenses. There is a full license. There's a full user access license called an essential user. That to the NFP sector would come in as little as £23 a month plus the VAT. And that will obviously be a large portion of your sort of members within your organisation that will need to be actioning things within inside your financial management tool. The second one, and actually perhaps more importantly, is the light user license, and that is called a team member license. Now, these sort of use cases can be utilized for budget holders or expense holders, if you like, financial reporting and auditing, and approval of expenses. Approvers is a big use case for the team member license, and that really is exceptional value at £2.60 a month. So I think you'd all agree that the more we can utilize that license, the cheaper the cost is for you guys running your management systems. And finally, hopefully today's webinar has really been an insightful look for you. And whilst we've only clearly scratched the surface of the systems capability, hopefully it's shown Business Central can really handle some of the specific accounting needs that charities have. So thank you very much indeed for joining us, and have a good day, everyone.